want to add someone to the conversation. Many Americans feel DEI has not just failed those it was meant to help, but it's turned into its own form of discrimination. It didn't help who it was meant to, and it's hurt others. Now joining us is attorney Seth Berenzweig. Thank you for joining us, Seth.
The old practice is absolutely discriminatory against Lois and Brooks, the other gentlemen that you've had on your show, and it hurts the students, it hurts the employees, but it also hurts the employers. It hurts American business. American business cannot thrive and strive to grow if we're going to be placing arbitrary buckets as a system. Equity does not equal equality. And as a result of that, President Trump has put this order in. It is hitting some litigation turbulence. I believe that will probably end up in front of the United States Supreme Court. But as you're demonstrating on your show today, there are real stories behind these situations. They're really troubling, and we are trying to adjust and correct a systemic problem that has been occurring in the United States for many years.
Well, and there's been this presumption that you can't discriminate against someone that's in a majority. And we've seen, I mean, Lois is the perfect example that you absolutely can. And the question is, should we expect to see more cases like Lois and Brooks in the future? And I want to hear what Lois says about this right after the break. We'll be right back. We're talking about whether or not the DEI that President Trump is trying to eliminate and enforce the elimination of is just reverse discrimination. And Lois, you heard Seth, he says it a lot better than I can. Did you feel discriminated against? Was this just reverse discrimination against you?
I don't even use the term reverse discrimination. It was discrimination. Race should never be a qualification, or in my case, a disqualification for a job.
And, you know, Seth, she and a few others sued, and they got a monetary award. I don't think it was near enough. Frankly, they settled, and probably the right thing to do, because you can't unring the bell. But it disrupts lives. This is a woman that spent years having a monumental impact on children that so needed it. Got a master's degree from Harvard and had a huge impact on New York City schools that are so in need of it. And now, okay, so she sues and they settle it, but these kids now are left without her skill set. They're left without her positive impact in an education system that's going to collapse around our ears. We can't afford to have her gone. That's the problem with this DEI mess.
Exactly. As we were noting a moment ago, everybody suffers through this system. There's not one good thing about it. And one of the unfortunate aspects of this process, which you've also correctly noted, is that the court system is inherently limited. Largely what it can do is, yes, it can issue a few injunctions, but in a case like this, it ultimately can take money from one side of the table and then bring it over to the other side of the table. But Lois's life has been turned upside down. And frankly, kudos to her for having the courage for standing in and fighting this, because in order for her to even be able to get the city of New York to step up to a settlement, she had to survive a motion to dismiss. So she stood up for her rights, she went up against an entire system, and she came out ahead. So if it wasn't for people with her fortitude, then really we wouldn't even be hearing these kinds of stories. Thank goodness we have an administration in Washington right now that is actually following the law. And I agree that any discrimination is discrimination. It violates the Civil Rights Act. Everybody should be treated equally based upon merit. So these are the kinds of stories that really tug at our heartstrings, but demonstrate that President Trump and great pride and very brave plaintiffs like Lois across the United States are doing the right thing.
You bet. So what should you do if you think your workplace has set up some inappropriate DEI policies? We'll answer that question when we come back. Well, we're back. Seth, what do people do if they get caught in a trap like Lois did? We got 30 seconds.
I think that they need to be proactive. They need to talk to first their supervisors to try to understand what's going on and get more clarity. Communication is key. Also, consult with legal counsel, understand what your rights are, and stand up for your rights. When we have great people like Lois who are going to step forward and enforce those rights, when we have leaders like Donald Trump that are going to make sure that we actually follow the law, this is where we progress as a society. So stand up for your rights, understand your rights, and hold firm, because we are a system of laws, and these laws really point in a just direction.
Great advice. I want to thank Lois, Seth, and Brooks, his father Monty, and attorney Mark Trammell. And I want to figure out how we can clone Lois and spread her across the whole education system. Maybe that'll save us. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much.